Hi there and welcome to the video. If you're a regular, welcome back. If you're new, my name is Nick, this is my wife,
Andrea,
and we're resellers. We sell stuff online and that's how we earn a living. And we're pleased to say that we have Hannah from eBay back with us and special guest Johnny. And we're going to talk a bit about promoted listings in this video. So first, do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, so I'm Hannah. I work for eBay UK, and some of the things I look after here are our YouTube channel. So we've got a YouTube channel, eBay for Business UK, and we do some social activities as well. But to be honest, most of my job is listening to sellers and finding out what's going on in their world and seeing what we can do to help, basically.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Johnny. I'm a product marketing manager at eBay. So my role is bringing promoted listings to the UK site, helping sellers get started with it, educating them about it, and listening to their feedback and developing the product as well.
Awesome.
Perfect. So do you want to start?
Yeah, so Johnny, will you be able to give us a bit of an overview of promoted listings? Explain to us what that is.
Sure. So in a nutshell, promoted listings is a self-service advertising tool. We've had it for about 4 years on site now, and it's part of our suite of marketing tools that we provide to sellers to help them grow their business. It's there to give you more visibility and help you stand out from the crowd. So it's really about getting your listing in more places across the site. And just to give a bit of context about it as well. So remember that eBay has over 1 billion live listings globally. And in terms of buyers, we have over 180 million buyers globally. So really significant traffic. That shows sort of the scale and the breadth of eBay. Promoted listings gives you the option to stand out amongst that traffic and really get more visibility for your listing. Now, when we launched the tool, we really wanted to give sellers the fairest way of advertising, which is why promoted listings is a cost per sale model. And that means that sellers only pay for the advertising when they sell an item. So that's really quite different from how some other advertising tools work on other platforms, which might charge you a fixed cost to take part in it, or they might charge you for a click. But we really wanted to partner with sellers with the advertising, which is why you do only pay when you sell an item.
Right, so basically you've got nothing to lose, have you?
It's super low risk in that sense. So
yeah.
you don't need to make an upfront investment. You don't need to commit budget up front. And it does also mean that you're only paying for performance. So you're not paying for a click, which might not convert into a sale, and you are only paying in a low risk way for that sale for performance.
So I think it's fair to say there was a fair bit of confusion around how it actually works and the functionality of it. And when I know we've been trying to set this video up for a while, but a few months back we spoke to our reseller community and we had a bunch of questions. I know we can't tackle all of those today, but we're going to try and go through a lot of the questions that were asked. So a big one is visibility. So if I pay to promote my listing, where does that mean it's promoted? I mean, who is it put in front of and how does the visibility work? Essentially, what am I paying for if I choose to promote?
Sure. So I think the first thing to mention is that when we show up promoted listings on site, we mark them as sponsored. We don't actually mark them as promoted. So we know there's a bit of a gap between what we call the product and how we show up these listings on site. So just keep an eye out for any listings which have the sponsored tag next to them, and they're coming through the promoted listings service.
Okay.
So I think that's the first thing to mention there.
Yeah, I'd seen that, just a little grey sponsored word.
Exactly.
Comes up in the search results.
Yeah.
But apart from that, it just looks like any other regular listing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But Nick, to your point about visibility, so when we launched promoted listings, we started off with it being a search advertising tool. So initially it was a way of getting higher visibility in search. That's obviously really important, and it's a really important place to be visible and get more visibility. But crucially, it can give you visibility all across the site in a lot more places than just a search results page. So we have advertising placements on an item page. So if you're promoting a listing, that might show up on an item page. We have promoted listings in a buyer's My eBay as well. So when a buyer's leaving doing some of their account admin in their My eBay section, they might be shown a relevant promoted listing to them. We also have some promoted listings in places like the checkout flow as well. So really, I think the key takeaway is that it's far more than just a search advertising tool. We actually have over 50 individual places across the site where we show up promoted listings, and that covers the classic desktop site, that covers the mobile app, as well as the version of the site that you see when you're in a mobile browser as well. So I think even if your listing is doing well normally in search and appearing at the top of search organically, there's still a lot of benefit you might get from promoting listings.
And is it just eBay that the listings will show up on, or do they show up on other sites or within a Google search? Or
Yes, so at the moment it is just on eBay. So if you list an item on eBay UK and you promote it on eBay UK, it would only be shown on the UK site.
Okay. So what would you say are the full benefits to promoting your listings?
Actually, sorry, Andrew, just to go, we'll come on to that in a minute. Just one point about visibility as well. A question I get is that people know that we show promoted listings further down in search results as well. And a question I get from sellers is, well, what's the point in showing it further down in search results?
Yeah.
Surely everyone wants to be at the top. And the reality is that we know that some buyers will scroll down a page. So a lot of clicks and a lot of transactions happen at the top of search, similar to a lot of search engines. But we know with the sheer amount of traffic and buyers we have coming to the site every month, that some of those buyers will scroll down a page. They're doing some really in-depth research. They're doing some serious browsing. And promoted listings gives you a way to show up to those people who scroll down without you having to demote yourself in search. So the last thing you want to do is damage your organic ranking. No seller on eBay wants to put themselves further down, but promoted listings gives you a way to potentially show up to people who do scroll down a page as well. So hopefully that makes sense, and it's another place where we show them.
So where your promoted listing would be shown, is that affected by how much you pay? So say you only promote it by 1%, does that mean that your listing would not be as visible as somebody that paid for something that to be shown 10%?
Sure. Ad rate is one factor. So just to briefly touch on ad rate and how it works, maybe for some of your subscribers. With promoted listings, you set an ad rate, which is a percentage of the item's price that you're willing to pay if it does sell through the advertising. So the higher your ad rate, the better chance you have of winning visibility. So a higher ad rate will increase your chance of winning that visibility and getting that promoted listing spot.
But it's not the only factor, though, is
Exactly.
it? There's a lot more to it.
Crucially, it's not the only factor, as Hannah said. Ad rate is one part of it, but the other big thing we look at is listing quality as well. Now, there's quite a lot of stuff that goes into listing quality. We look at how well that item has been performing organically on eBay. We look at the quality of the listing, and built into that is also a bit of sort of the seller's performance as well. So crucially, ad rate isn't the only factor that determines who does best on promoted listings.
Okay. That's really interesting, actually.
Yeah, I didn't realise
to know that, you know, obviously if you're a top rated seller and you're doing everything that, you know, eBay want you to do, then you're more likely to have more visibility of your listing when you promote them.
Yeah, I've made the assumption that if somebody has a higher percentage, that eBay would push it further and to more buyers, because they're going to get a higher revenue share when it sells, which isn't necessarily the case then.
It's not. It's certainly not that simple.
Okay.
So a higher percentage would increase your chances, but as I said, there's a whole other factor involved with promoted listings, which is about that listing quality. The last thing we want to do is prioritize a low quality listing from a poor seller, even if it's paying a high ad rate. So it's not possible just to buy your way to the top with promoted listings. It's really important for eBay that we make sure that we're promoting listings which are also in demand, and coming from high quality sellers as well.
Okay.
Right. And can we just clarify to people that maybe haven't used promoted listings? We're talking about ad rate, and that's done on a sliding scale, right? And it's to do with percentages. And the percent that you pick is the percentage of the item cost that you then pay to eBay. Is that how it works? Is it as simple as that?
Yeah. So let's say you're selling an item for £100 and you're willing to pay a 5% ad rate if that item sells through promoted listings. Now, 5% of £100, my maths isn't good, but that's £5.
Come on, you can do this.
I've got it. So yeah, 5% of a £100 item, your ad fee would be £5 in that case. So the ad rate isn't applied to your final value fee or your shipping costs. It's purely a percentage of the item's price. And again, you will only pay that when you actually sell the item.
So it's a little bit different to how the final value fees are calculated.
It is, yeah.
Okay. And then moving on, I think it was Gary actually who asked this particular question, and this is one that I have a lot of interest in. When is it worth promoting your listing? I've certainly done some searches to find out how my items are ranking, and I'll see a sponsored one at the top because I had promoted listings on it, and the next one is me, the exact same listing. So in that case, would you suggest that that item wouldn't really be a good item to promote because I'm kind of ranking at the top anyway? So when would you promote and when wouldn't you?
Sure. Again, really what we'd recommend here is a bit of experimentation. So where you do have time to have a bit of a play around with promoting different listings, we'd really recommend that. Nick, to your point, I think if you are appearing at the top of search normally, as we've spoken about earlier, remember that you can get more visibility in loads more places across the site. So you still might want to give that listing a bit of a boost across the site and get some more visibility for it.
And I think to the question of when should you promote a listing, there's a few different scenarios that it's going to be suitable for. So if it's a new listing and you want to get more eyeballs on it, you want to get your view count up, potentially get some more watchers, promoting that listing can help to give that a boost really early on in the listing's life. Or you could use it for things that have been sitting around for a while that you think, what do I do? Do I put a promoted listing ad campaign on it? Do I do best offer? Do I change the price? It's one of these tools that you can use to get more people on it. But as Johnny said, with the promoted listings, or promote your listings as we call it in the UK, that is going to give you a lot more visibility all around the site. The other thing that's quite interesting that I'm not sure if a lot of people know is that any sales that you get through the promoted version of the listing, that all counts to your sales history. Now, that may not be so useful if what you're selling is all one-offs, but for those items where you've got maybe 5, 10, maybe even more in stock, each time one of those sells, it's adding to the sales history, which is going to help your organic positions as well. So it all counts towards that.
Okay. And another point that I remember that Gary, this is Gary Booton, a subscriber of ours, was saying is it worth, well, he wrote it as, is it worth having it promoted if you are the only seller or there are very few items listed? Would you still recommend using promoted listings if you've got a very obscure one-off item that you're not really competing with anyone with anyway? Is there a point to promoting that?
Sure. I think we have such a wide range of sellers, and it's a tool for so many different categories that there will always be these edge cases where you may feel like you're doing well enough already without needing to invest in advertising. The reality is that we don't see all sellers using it all the time on all of their listings. It's meant to be something flexible. I think I forget your subscriber's name, Gary. I think if Gary has a really unique product and he feels he's got a good sort of market share already for that product on eBay, then maybe promoted listings isn't quite the right tool for him. So maybe he wants to think about multi-buy or using another kind of promotional tool on eBay.
But I guess it also depends on where his potential buyers are looking. If they're doing a search that's specifically for that item and that's the only result that's coming up in search, then he may not need to do it. But if it's the sort of thing that you may not be looking for, but you look at it and you go, oh, that's what I need. Maybe they were looking for something else. It's showing up in all these other locations. So yeah, I think that Johnny said, a bit of experimentation just to see what works. And every listing's different. Every seller's business is different, and which tools they prefer is different.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately it's we've built this to be as low risk as possible. So you do only pay when you sell the item, as I said. So if he wanted to start with a low ad rate and just test the water a bit, he'll only pay that ad rate when he makes a sale. So we've tried to make it as low risk as possible. So really, hopefully there's some bandwidth and some flexibility there to be able to test it and try it on a few different listings, measure the impact, and see if it did have an effect.
Yeah.
So what would happen if you sold something via promoted listings, but then that was returned? Would you then still lose that and the amount that you paid for the promoted listing, or would that then be refunded along with your fees?
Great question, and really simple answer: we do refund the fee. So if the item is, if the transaction is cancelled for any reason, so the buyer returns the item, or any of the other reasons for a transaction being cancelled, it's only fair that we also refund the advertising fee as well, because he didn't make a sale ultimately.
And it's also one of the reasons that we're really keen that the ads that are getting the greatest visibility are for good products, good sellers who deliver good customer service, because eBay is a business, and refunding lots of advertising fees doesn't make good commercial sense for us. So we want these, we don't want them to be boomerang items that keep coming back. We want these to be the listings that a buyer is really looking for, and that is a nice, easy transaction for the seller too.
Yeah.
And
I was going to say, Karen, a good friend of ours, wanted to ask about that. Do you get the fees back? So hopefully she'll watch this. Yeah,
you do. And just to finish up on that point, your invoice is sort of the source of truth for all of your promoted listings activity. So on your monthly eBay invoice, we'll itemize all of the advertising fees you've had, and we also itemize the credits as well. So that's where you can see if you've had a transaction that was cancelled, you can see the credit will be refunded there. Bear in mind that sometimes it can take a little while for that credit to be processed, purely because some cancelled transactions can take a while to close on eBay. So it might not be instantaneous, but if in any doubt, I'd recommend you check your invoice where you can see it all itemized on there as well.
Okay.
And I'd also like to say, I mean, I made a video about this when we first started experimenting with it. Within the promoted listings page, if you like, within the Seller Hub, you can track how many impressions you're getting through it and how many sales, and you can see the fees. And that's quite encouraging. You can actually see that it's working or not, and whatever the case may be. So I'd recommend checking that out. I haven't actually looked at ours for a while. I don't know, to be honest.
No.
Yeah, Nick, that's a great point. So just to talk a bit about sort of the experience and how to promote your listings. In 2019, we've been integrating promoted listings into Seller Hub. When we launched promoted listings, it had a separate dashboard which you had to click to, and it didn't sit within the Seller Hub. We had a lot of feedback from sellers asking if we could integrate it into Seller Hub. So that's a lot of the product work we've been doing this year. So on the active listings tab within Seller Hub, for example, you might see options to promote a listing there. But really, the dashboard is the dedicated place to go to manage your activity. So that's where you can get all of your reporting. You can check which listings you have being promoted at the moment. You can check your ad rate. You can also download a dedicated report for each campaign. So if you do have a few different campaigns running, there's a drop-down menu there where you can download an Excel report with a load of detailed info, such as impressions, clicks, the amount of sales you've made. So even if you are using some of these newer options within Seller Hub to promote your listings, I'd still recommend going to that dashboard, and you can access it through the marketing tab of Seller Hub as well.
And I think that's the other thing, that you can go in and you can edit campaigns. So let's say you wanted to try it with 2%. After a month, you might want to review it, or you might want to have different percentages for different listings. All of that is customizable, and you can do it at an individual listing level and at a campaign level as well. So you can group listings together. So if you've got listings that have all got a similar margin level to them, you can put them all together into a campaign, because you know how much those items generally owe you, what percentage you can afford to give away on margins. And then there might be others where you've had a fantastic haul, you've got some items at a really low price, but you're going to make so much money on them that you think, actually, I just want to close it. I want to get it out there, and maybe I want to add a higher ad rate onto that one. You can do it. So it's very flexible. I guess you can make it as tailored or not as you want, or as complicated or not as you want. And I know when you started off, you just put 1% on everything, didn't you, Nick?
Pretty much, and I'm kind of still there, because to my mind it's like it's almost insignificant cost wise unless it's a really expensive item. So I figure I'd rather have 1% of promotion, whatever that means, and we'll go on to that perhaps soon, than none, because then hopefully I'll be pushed a little bit further than others. And 1% is not going to break the bank whatsoever. It's almost insignificant.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I list all the clothing on our account, and I vary it. So sometimes it's between 1% and 5%, depending on how much I list an item for. But I tend to not set campaigns, and I just list it. I set the ad rate as I'm on an individual listing as I'm listing. So I'll, complete my listing, do the ad rate, make it live. Instead of going in and then setting a campaign, so I can judge it on an individual basis.
And just a question I wanted to ask on that. So how are you managing that within Seller Hub? Like, do you use the custom labels to figure out like what percentage you think you can afford from an advertising point of view, or are these things that you do like on a spreadsheet or something like that, or in your head?
Pretty much in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just base it on my.
We're not that organised.
No, I just based it on how much I'm selling. I've decided to sell the item for, and how much I think I can, afford to pay for, to use promoted listings or to lose on that item as such.
Well, like we were saying before, I've tended to just say I'm going to do 1% or whatever, kind of across the board. The other way I've done it, when you use the sliding scale, you can actually see the monetary value going up, how much you will be charged if it sells at 1%, 5%, whatever. And sometimes with an item, I'll say I'm happy to spend 75p to promote this if it sells. Yeah. And then I just slide it up, and the percentage is irrelevant then. It's how much I'm going to be charged if it sells on promoted.
Yeah, we haven't actually mentioned that you can actually see how much you're going to be charged on each listing, depending on how much you've listed the item for. So that's how much I gauge it on. So I sort of,
yeah, I have done that as well.
There was just another thing that you've just reminded me about is I know a lot of people who follow your channel have been using the send offer to buyers feature and have been trying out things like multi-buy, order discounts, all of those. When you're calculating what discounts you're prepared to get, just remember which of your listings are already in a promote your listings ad campaign, because if that watcher, for example, had originally found your listing through an ad, then the ad fee will be charged on it. So if you already have in your mind how much you've been prepared to spend if that person came through the ad, take that into account when you're calculating what offer price you put out to the potential buyers.
Right, but we won't have any way of knowing.
That's what I was going to ask, actually. How can you see that? Because when I go through to look at sending offers to watchers, it's not obvious whether those.
Yeah, and this is something we've been looking at as well, that we've been hearing this from a number of sellers in the community, that they want to find an easy way to know which of their listings is promoted before they decide to send an offer to a buyer or include it in something. So it's something we're looking at.
If you're operating on the sort of 1 or 2%, as I tend to do, I wouldn't even consider that most of the time. But if people are really pushing it and doing the 5, 10, 15%, then you're really going to have to think about that.
Yes.
So it's not so relevant for the way I've been using promoted listings.
Not the way I've been doing it either.
But yeah, that's worth considering.
Yeah.
As Hannah said, we've heard that feedback. We're looking at ways we can improve that at the moment. So we do want to get to that transparency. We don't want any stealth fees, or we don't want any sellers to be surprised about their activity. So we've taken that on board, and we're looking at improving it essentially.
Okay,
that's good.
Now the next question we've kind of covered. I thought this might happen. We've kind of covered bits of this one already, I think. But I'm talking about the ad rate, and we did have a lot of questions when we put this out to the community. I think it was Martin Pike was asking a lot of questions about how the algorithm works with relation to the ad rate. So if you push it further, what more do you get effectively, and is it worth spending more? And how does that work with that dreaded word, the algorithm? Do you want to touch on
Sure.
that side of things?
Yeah, more than happy to. I think we did touch on it briefly earlier. Just to reiterate a couple of points, the higher your ad rate, the better chance you have of winning that visibility amongst the competition. It's not as simple as a high ad rate automatically means you win top spot or the top promoted listing spot. Again, keep in mind that item quality plays a big part in deciding who does well on promoted listings. But again, we'd really recommend that if you do have the time, try a bit of experimentation with promoted listings. Try increasing the ad rate gradually. So again, you can start with a low ad rate and gradually increase it by increments. I know all of you guys are super busy with a load of other.
Sorry.
Busy day. I know you're all super busy people, but if you can carve out a little bit of time each week, maybe to see if that higher ad rate has had an impact, then we know that some sellers who do that are seeing some benefits there. And I think ultimately ad rate is flexible, and it's something you can tweak. You can increase it or decrease it depending on what your objectives are. And
sorry, go ahead. I was just reminding me of something else there.
I think the last point which Hannah alluded to earlier is that any transactions you get through promoted listings count towards that item's organic history. So feedback and seller ratings, which you get through a promoted listing sale, will count towards that item's organic performance. So some sellers are investing in a bit of a higher ad rate than they could normally sustain, but they're doing this as a bit of a loss leader approach and getting a few more sales through promoted listings, but then they're reducing it way back to something more manageable, something more sustainable, but they've still got a bit of goodness from the advertising.
So it's kickstarting a new listing, really,
exactly.
Getting some sales history on it. And
right. Well, that makes sense. Obviously, if you've got multi-item, I think with a lot of what we do and a lot of what our subscribers do, it's more the unique second-hand stuff. So that side of it may not be so relevant. But certainly, if you're doing multi-quantity, like with the car parts that I do, that might be worth experimenting with items that are slow and aren't shifting. I could edge that up and see if it has an impact.
But also, I was thinking it might be an alternative to setting a sale at some points, that you could then, mess around with some listings that aren't performing so well and set higher ad rates just to see if you can. Yeah,
because you can bring it down.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking about.
So the thing that popped into my head while you were talking there, Johnny, was in terms of what do you get when you spend a bit more on the ad rate, just remember that there's more than one ad slot available on a search results page or in any of the other placements. And so there's some ranking within the ad slots as well. So it's not just you get one spot and that's right up at the top. There's multiple available, and that can be impacted by where you appear within those available ad slots can be impacted by the rate.
Okay.
Yeah. We had some questions from Mike Gosh and Graham Nichols, among others, basically asking how to go about promoting listings. What are the different ways to promote listings and to get started? And also, does eBay ever change or increase the ad rate on our behalf?
Yeah, well, this also goes back to an issue that I was having, and Mike Gush and Graham had the same problem, where we were setting a rate and then we were charged a different rate, and I don't know how that happened still.
Well, I think there were two questions in there, so should we do them one by one?
Yeah. Do you want me to say again?
Yeah, do the first one.
So the first one was how to promote listings. What are the different ways to go about promoting your listings and getting started?
Sure. And Andrea, that's in the sense of practically how do you do it on site? Like, what are the different options?
Or is it at a more philosophical level?
I don't know. I'm just reading their question.
Well, I think that for the practicalities of how to do it, there is a tutorial video that's on the eBay for Business UK channel that shows step by step how to do it. It's getting a little bit old, so some of the buttons might have moved, some of the words might have changed, but fundamentally it's still the same experience. So that gives you a walkthrough in a couple of minutes of exactly how to do it. Okay. But since that was launched, there's other ways to do it, like from within the active listings tab.
So broadly speaking, again, we've got that dedicated dashboard. So promoted listings has that dedicated section of the site, which you can access through the marketing tab. And that can be considered sort of the home page or the hub for promoted listings activity. So through that dashboard, you can launch a new campaign, you can edit your campaigns and check all of your reporting. And then, as I mentioned earlier, this year we've been integrating it a bit more within Seller Hub as well. So Andrea, you mentioned that you'd seen options to promote listings at the end of a listing flow. So if you've just created a listing, at the bottom you'll see a module where we say, would you like to promote this listing? Again, that was feedback we had from sellers, just to make it really quick and easy and make it super accessible.
Yeah, that's what we use, 100%.
Yeah. That's the way I prefer. And also when I'm then revising my listings or I'm changing prices, then I can just change the ad rate.
Exactly.
And when you do that, just a question for me, because I don't know the answer to this. When you do that through the mobile app, does that apply the trending ad rate for that category or an ad rate that you select? So
some of these flows will default to the trending ad rate of the category, which isn't a topic we've touched on yet. So maybe just to talk through that briefly. When you are setting your ad rate, which is that percentage, to give you a bit of guidance, we show you the trending ad rate for the category that item is listed in. So that trending ad rate is essentially what other sellers are paying to promote their listing. It helps, just gives you a bit of guidance on whether your ad rate is competitive, and whether you're sort of below or above what other sellers are willing to pay. Now, I would say don't be put off by the trending ad rate. So if you can only afford to set an ad rate which is lower than that, it's still worth you giving promoted listings a try. Again, because it's about more than the ad rate. But we do provide that trending ad rate so you can see what your competition are paying when you're launching a campaign. And again, some of these flows within Seller Hub might by default have the trending ad rate initially applied. You can of course change it to whatever ad rate that you can afford, or whatever ad rate you want to set.
And just actually, that it occurs to me that might link into the second question that we had there, where it might be that that's happened.
Yeah, and I think that's possibly what happened with us. Because I've not used my mobile since to finish my listings.
Yeah, for those people that, I think I put out a video at the time, so I was very confused about how my ad rate, I was getting charged a higher percentage than what I knew I had set. And there was the guys who mentioned, Mike Gush and Graham Nichols, had the very same issue, and they were very confused about how that had changed.
In our case at that point, I had revised or relisted a bunch of listings on my mobile and not been able to see what the ad rate was on those. And
let's check that out. Yeah, I think let's come back to you on that one once we've checked it out properly.
Okay.
I think just to clarify one thing, which is that eBay don't change your ad rate on your behalf without your consent. So that's something we can be absolutely clear about.
Right, that's what a lot of our subscribers were basically asking.
Exactly.
Is eBay meddling with the figure that I'm setting? And the answer is no, but maybe there's been times when we've been caught up with, as you put it, the listing flow.
Yeah,
and it's
for
set the trending.
recommended.
Exactly, yeah.
Right.
Because I know that happens on the mobile, definitely, with suggested pricing. And sometimes people don't notice, oh, eBay want you to sell something that we want to sell for £30 for like £3.15 or something.
Yeah,
and they don't notice that.
I'll be honest.
They're listing live and
So I'm thinking we've covered a lot of questions already. Have you got many more on the list?
No.
Oh, okay.
I was just thinking that to wrap up, because I did ask the question and then we moved on and said we'd go back to it. Just to wrap up, if we could just summarize what the full benefits of promoted listings are and why people should try it.
Sure. Again, I think going back to the couple of statistics I had at the beginning, keep in mind all of that traffic we have on eBay, those 180 million global buyers. So it's a way to get visibility and stand out. And in terms of benefits, to run through them quickly, we've touched on how it's risk-free because you only pay when you sell. The range of visibility, so how it can give you visibility on a search results page, either at the top or further down the bottom, but also in loads of other places across the site. Hannah mentioned the long-term benefits, so maybe not quite so relevant if you're selling single quantity items, but if you do have a multi-quantity item, you get promoted listings will contribute towards that item's organic performance. Also some other sort of halo benefits, or some other benefits which aren't so directly linked to making a short-term sale, but just having a free source of traffic to your store and having a free source of clicks coming through to your eBay presence is a beneficial thing for any business online. So there might even be a bit of branding and awareness impact. So if you are trying to build a bit of a brand on eBay, if your business does have a sort of brand identity which you're trying to build up, just having that traffic coming through, which you're not paying for, will help with your awareness. Buyers and shoppers will remember your store, and it's just useful to have that touch point.
And I think for me, because like I said right at the start, I spend a lot of time in the community and talking to sellers about how things are going for them. A lot of really unique inventory can take quite a long time to sell. It may have been listed for months, and over time, if it's not selling, it's possible that other listings might be getting more visibility because they're coming in new. So it does give you that opportunity to just keep it in front of potential buyers so that you can catch their eye, and it doesn't start to drift away out of visibility. Of course, if people are searching for that exact item, it's going to show up anyway, but it can just help to liquidate some of that stock that might have been sitting around for a while, and then give you the cash flow that you need to go out and source new inventory.
Yeah, definitely.
And lastly, I think there are some actions, or there are some things which might be going on that we don't report on through promoted listings. So if a buyer clicks on one of your promoted listings ads and gets through to your shop, if they bookmark your shop in their browser, that's a hard thing for us to capture and report on. If they watch one of your items, again, that's a hard thing. That's not something we wrap up and report on at the moment, but the advertising might lead them to watching 10 or 15 of your items. And also there's a really nice benefit, which is that if they click on your promoted listing, but then go to buy another listing in your shop, you obviously don't pay the ad fee there. So you only pay the ad fee if they buy the item they clicked on in the promoted listing ad.
Okay.
So if they click on one listing and then go and buy something else that wasn't promoted, that's another sale you've got there as well. So I do always encourage sellers to think about the bigger picture as well. We all want to drive sales. We all want to, make the sale and get some money, but there are these other nice benefits which are still going on, which it's worth thinking about as well. So,
Andrea, I'm not sure if there is a short answer to that question, because there's lots of benefits to it. But I think for me, it is the amount of control over it that you have as a seller, that you are in control of how much you're spending, you're in control of which listings you put it on, whether it's switched on or not. And it's one of many marketing tools that's available to you as a seller.
Well, there are certainly some of the extra benefits that I hadn't really considered, in terms of visibility for your shop, or helping to promote your own branding.
Before we wrap this up, did you, Johnny, want to talk about the product changes regarding parts and accessories? Yes.
Yeah. Now this is some recent news which we've announced we announced it on Thursday the 30th of May, and it's quite a specific issue to vehicle parts and accessories. Now, some categories within parts and accessories have the parts and attire finder, sometimes known as parts compatibility. Essentially, it's the functionality where a buyer can filter search results to see listings which only match their model of car. So if I've got a Vauxhall Astra, they can put in those details and filter those search results just to show listings which fit their car. Now, it's come to light that on occasions we've been showing some irrelevant promoted listings after a buyer has used that functionality. So promoted listings haven't always been as relevant to that model of car as we would have liked. Now, this is only affecting categories within parts and accessories which have the parts and attire finder. So what we'll be doing from the first week of June onwards is actually stopping showing promoted listings in search results for those categories. Now, remember, as we discussed, your listing may be shown in loads more places across the site. So you can still get visibility on different pages, on an item page, or in the buyer's My eBay. But buyers and sellers won't see promoted listings within a search results page for those categories.
But it's not all of parts and accessories, is it? Because there's a lot of things that don't rely on that compatibility, like GPS and things like that. If it's only the subcategories where things like bulbs and things like that, which will only fit certain vehicles.
Does that make sense so far, Nick? Am I explaining it correctly?
It gives me a little insight into how complex it is as well.
I think the message is for sellers in those categories who might be affected is that they can still get some visibility for their campaigns. They will probably see their promoted listings reporting drop a bit. So they will see less impressions, less clicks, less sales for their promoted listings campaigns. But again, because you only pay for the advertising when you make a sale, it's not the case that you're still paying the same amount for a reduced service. So your costs will also go down as well. This is affecting all sellers in the category. So it's not the case that some sellers are still allowed to use promoted listings as it was. And essentially, you know, we felt that the buyer experience or the shopping experience wasn't quite right. So the best thing to do was just to roll it back for a bit whilst we work on developing the product as well.
Okay, fantastic. Right, so I think we're going to wrap this one up. I know to those viewers who gave us questions that we haven't tackled, there was a lot of stuff we couldn't cover in this, but hopefully we've answered some of the questions that people put to us.
Hope so.
Drop us a message below if you've got any further questions, and we can chat about this in the comments below. Right, it just remains to thank you both for coming on.
Yes, thank you.
Cheers, Johnny. Hope you enjoyed that.
Good to meet you.
And yeah, so drop us a message below. Let us know if you're using promoted listings, what your thoughts are on it in the comments below the video. And we'll see you guys in the next one.
Yep. Thanks.
Sounds good.
Bye. See you later.
Thanks.
Bye.